Welcome to Celebrating Act 2. Celebrating Act 2 is the user manual for the second half of your life.
Thanks for joining us again on Celebrating Act 2. I'm Art Kirsch. Joining me and my Celebrating Act 2 co-founder John Coleman is our guest, a baby boomer who loved the television of his youth so much he went into the business and is now host of his own talk show featuring the legends of classic television, Herbie J. Pilato. Welcome, Herbie.
Thank you so much. Hello, John Art. Thank you.
Herbie, I'm glad you're here with us. I love your series, Then Again with Herbie J. Pilato, which, little plug here, now streaming on Amazon. And I think people, before we get into the discussion of the show, I think people will appreciate it a little bit more if we let them know some of your background, because you're not just a fan of early TV, you are truly an expert. You've worked in the industry for close to 30 years, as I understand it. You're a producer, or have been a producer, performer, entertainment executive, and certainly a writer, not only of TV shows, but of a dozen books on
Correct.
TV and pop culture, I would call it. So my point here is that people need to understand that when you host your television show, Then Again with Herbie J. Pilato, um, they are getting the benefit of somebody who knows what he's talking about, somebody who really is a fan as well as a TV professional. And it's obvious that from watching your shows that it's a labor of love. So tell us about why you're doing Then Again with Herbie J. Pilato.
Okay. Well, when I was born in Rochester and I moved to Los Angeles to become an actor originally in the 80s, that was the goal. But I also felt that I needed to have some behind the scenes, information and to really become familiar with those kinds of things. So I heard that getting a job as a page at one of the TV networks was a good way to start, a good internship, specifically NBC. And being an NBC page was a big deal. CBS was okay, ABC was okay, but being an NBC page was a big deal. So I went for it, and people said you couldn't do it, and I ended up doing it. I went to a taping of Family Ties, the TV show starring Michael J. Fox, and I saw one of the pages there doing that, and I said, I want to do what you do. And he says, well, it's tough, and it doesn't pay anything. And I says, I don't care, I want to do it. So he got me an interview, and I got the job 6 months later after every 2 weeks calling for it. And it was kind of an amazing thing because usually, not always, but usually those jobs really are for people who know people who know people who know people who know people. I just met a page and I said, can you help me? I want to do what you do. I wasn't anybody's brother's, cousin's, sister's pool boy or whatever. And so it was just wonderful. And then I really started becoming intrigued by how a TV show is produced. And how it's presented and created. And I learned all of that by studying the manual of what pages had to know to disperse that knowledge on the tours, because part of the job of NBC page was giving tours. And we also had assignments in different departments, which led me to working in the publicity department for I. G. Magini 15 years later, which was a TV movie reunion, a reunion TV movie of that series that was on NBC, and it was being rebooted as a film for television in 1985. But I said to myself, wait a minute, there's not going to be any blonde hair magical woman who's married to a dark-haired magical guy. And if they're going to do a reunion of that kind of series, it should be Bewitched, because Jeannie was kind of like a takeoff on Bewitched.
Sure.
So I wrote a reunion for Bewitched. Elizabeth Montgomery didn't want to do it, and I said, well, how about we do a book? And boom, a few years later I became an author. So and then I started writing other books, and then I started doing documentaries about the TV shows that I wrote about. And one thing led to the other. I started doing book signings and live events, and it was really the live events that led to the ultimate hosting of my show.
Well, that's pretty amazing. You were also an actor. Did that come later, or
No, that was in between. That was in between the writing of the Bewitched reunion movie and then the Bewitched book. Because I did a lot of atmosphere work. I did a lot of extra work. I did parts, little bit parts on the Golden Girls and Highway to Heaven. I did the pilot for Highway to Heaven actually, and General Hospital, Bold and the Beautiful. The Golden Girls was kind of interesting though, because I had worked the Golden Girls as a page, and then I ended up being in a. I played a photographer in an episode starring John Shuck. I think that's how you say his name. The guy from the great actor from Macmillan and Wife,
Sure.
who played a transsexual. And in that particular episode, I don't know why, but my particular character had slept with Blanche. That was the running thing that my character slept with Blanche, played by Rue McClanahan.
Great. And by
That
the
was
way,
one of the
Chuck was
lucky
also in
ones.
MASH, right? But he was in the movie MASH. I think he was a
Oh,
dentist.
okay, movie,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I don't know movies. I just know TV.
You're not allowed to watch anything over 60 inches. Yes.
You're right.
Well, you've had a wonderful career, and it all, of course, started because you were a kid watching television and fell in love with the medium and fell in love with all those actors, all those wonderful actors of the early days from our childhood. All of us baby boomers would sit and just fall in love with the stories, with the acting. A lot of imagination went into, as you know, goes into all television, and a lot of effort to make it look and feel like you're really there. And you had the benefit, unlike most people, you had the benefit of growing up and meeting your heroes, if you will, and working with. I think to myself, working with Rue McClanahan, that you you just tossed that off, but what a
Yeah.
hoot that must have been.
Well, I didn't really work with her. I passed by her on the same stage with the cameras in front.
But that's a talent. That you're a walk by, yeah.
Yeah, a walk on.
Hmm.
Hey, that's legitimate credit. Yeah, we'll take it. We'll take it. But Elizabeth Montgomery,
Yeah.
uh, she was really an idol. Then here you are writing a script for her, a
Yeah.
book, and then a book working with her. You got to know her pretty well.
I did. I did it. That was really, I mean, a huge, huge, magical for sure time in my life. I grew up in Rochester, inner city. It was a tough time. I was picked on as a kid for whatever reasons. We were all looking for escapism,
Sure.
and I just felt that I was like drawn to Los Angeles through the TV, through the looking glass. So then to finally meet Elizabeth after studying her work before and after Bewitched, because she did so many other things
Right.
beyond Bewitched.
Right.
When I finally did meet her, it was like I had already known her. And I respected her as a person. I didn't ask her to twitch her nose. I had never asked for a picture
Yeah.
with her. I never asked for an autograph. Today everybody does the selfies with the, celebrities, and that's a cool thing. It's acceptable. Then I wanted to stand out. I wanted
Sure.
to stand apart from that type of individual and prove to her that I respected her as a person. People find that a lot. I mean, I have a lively personality, so I always have to temper my pace, whether it was celebrities or not, because sometimes it's like there's that danger of coming on too strong. So you got to pull back. You have to feel out the situation. If I was reserved or an accountant, I wouldn't have to worry about that. But I love the industry so much, and I love life, and
Yeah.
I'm a people person in general. But you always have to just, balance it out and
Yes.
moderate.
Yeah. Well, that's what I like about your show, by the way,
Thank you.
is the fact that you obviously, as the host of Then Again with Herbie J. Pilato, streaming on Amazon, got to get that in correctly.
And
Uh,
Amazon UK too.
Eh,
Amazon Prime.
really? In the UK?
Amazon Prime and now in the UK.
It's now in the UK.
Well, congratulations. That's
And
great.
as we're taping today, this is the first anniversary of the show's debut. So,
No kidding.
Congratulations.
yep.
Oh, how wonderful. Art,
Yeah.
sing happy birthday. Happy birthday.
No, you're the soprano in the group. By the way, I have to tell you, I've watched a lot of your shows, and my favorite is Robert Conrad.
Oh gosh.
Yes.
And actually, most of the time you did, and I was a huge fan of Wild West, and you must be really good friends with him, or have a relationship because obviously he has at the time of the taping was dealing with a health issue, and
Yeah.
the fact that he was just so open with you, uh,
Yeah.
No, I that was the first day I met him.
right?
Uh,
Really.
that
Well,
was
see,
the,
I think
Wow,
that's because Herbie J. I think that kind of success with the interview is because of your background. You bring to these interviews knowledge and a professionalism that they can relate to immediately, and I think they get more comfortable with you than they would with a lot of other hosts, and it shows on the show. That's why I think, uh, off the record, I think that's part of the success of the series.
thank you. I appreciate you saying that. Yes, I do. I do try to do my research, and I do know of these things certainly almost by second nature. But again, also too, it's I really am interested in people. Whatever they do. I mean, the fact that these people are in television and that I grew up watching them, that's all like extra.
Yeah.
Again, I try to just bond or connect with them on a human level, and all the other stuff just is like added to it.
Yeah.
Is icing on the cake.
Well, yes, all of that is true, but it is a very nicely done show. I mean, it's not a big budget show, but it's a very nicely done show.
Thank you.
And as a professional, I really respect the production, the creative force behind it. And you have a bunch of partners that work with you.
Oh my gosh, I could not have done it at all without Joel Eisenberg, Lori Gersh, and Steve Hillard of Council Tree Productions. They
Yeah.
just believed in me. What happened was I was doing these live events in Burbank, Barnes and Noble for like a weekly pop culture live talk show kind of thing
Yeah.
with celebrities like Dawn Wells and from Gilligan's Island and Kathy Garver, Family Affair, and Chips, Larry Wilcox, Lydia Cornell, just from Too Close for Comfort. So I started doing these, and it was only supposed to be for about a month in July, and we continued on with them because people started showing up at the events at this Barnes and Noble, and I turned to the management at Barnes and Noble, and I says, "Look, we can't stop doing this. People are showing up every week. This is great. We got to continue." So by December of that year, I had a big holiday Christmas party of all the guests that had shown up before. They all came back, most of them. And that went on for like 3 hours.
wow.
And at the end of that event, Joel Eisenberg, who had also been a friend by this time, and he had also been on the show because he's an incredible writer, producer in his own right, no pun intended. He says to me after the live event, I want to turn this into a TV show.
Yeah.
And I was like, Merry Christmas to me, right?
Yeah.
Because I wasn't thinking about that. I was just thinking about all that time, just having a good time. I'm talking with, these TV stars every week. It was a fun thing to do. I wasn't making any money. I was putting money into it, because I was producing and organizing it every week. And I was driving 40 miles up and 40 miles back from Cerritos to Burbank. I was just thinking of having fun. I always wanted my own TV show. Who doesn't? Okay. But at that moment, I wasn't thinking that. I just was like, well, I guess this is what my life is going to be. Every Thursday, I'm going to go to Burbank and talk to TV stars and help them sell their books or whatever. And then boom.
So Harry J, I have a question for you. You, I couldn't believe that what you told me about Robert Conrad. And by the way, Black Sheep Squadron was my favorite of his, even though I watched Wild Wild West for years. But don't tell me that this is the first time that you met most of the people on the Dark Shadows cast, because it was like
The Dark
it was
Shadows
like a
cast?
reunion.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, the Dark Shadows cast, that was great. I mean, I had known I had interviewed most of them for, like, I did articles and I still do for the Television Academy and Emmys.com. So I did a profile on Dark Shadows for the 50th anniversary, which was 2016, and I interviewed Catherine Lee Scott and Lara Parker and David Selby for that. And I had also known Catherine before that. We were potentially going to do a book together that ultimately didn't come together, but she has an amazing, she's a writer as well. She has a publishing firm. So I'd known them. Yeah. So it was a reunion. But Dark Shadows, I just loved, Dark Shadows. And I've never said this on the air or on streaming, but I was so blown away that the three main living stars of Dark Shadows was I was on it. Forget that I was in a TV studio with them, but then that they were doing my show. I
Yeah.
was I was really touched. I had to really go to the restroom for a moment, and I teared up a little bit. I'm like, wait a minute. That's David Selby. That's Catherine Lee Scott, Lara Parker. The amazing Angelique. They're on. I'm here with them. It was a pinch me moment.
Yeah. And you were in your gothic velvet a
I,
smoking jacket with
yes, we changed the whole set just for that show
yeah.
because we wanted to gothicize it.
And yeah, that's what I mean when I say the love, your labor of love really shines through all the episodes. Um, I want to, because this is celebrating Act Two, and your Act Two is the second half of your life, and arguably maybe when you turn 50, that's the beginning of the second half of your life. That's the demarcation
The remake.
that Nielsen
Yeah,
uses, and it's good enough for me.
yeah, yeah.
So we're talking to other baby boomers and millennials who are millennials, no, Generation X, who are turning 50 and now entering the second half of their life, as well as some of the greatest generation who were not kids when they were watching Dark Shadows.
Right.
My question for you, as a celebrating Act Two guest, is: was there a moment, because you're still active in the industry? You're
Oh,
you're
sure.
you're by no means retired.
Right. I
Um,
mean, the industry's at a standstill right now, and
Right.
we're waiting like everybody else. But yes, I'm
sure,
as active as can be.
but the difference is you're actively working, you're writing, and you're looking for work, and
Yes.
what the next production's on the board in the back, whether you can raise money for it or not.
Yeah.
Was there a point somewhere around 50 or 55 when you kind of changed your attitude towards your career? Because I think to myself, um, your story about getting to the point where you're doing the live events with then again, and now the TV show
Yeah.
was probably a result of maybe a head change. You get older, you think to yourself, shit, why don't I just do this?
Yeah.
Was there a moment like that or not?
Well, I don't remember turning 50 because I'm only 45. But no, yeah.
Uh-oh, Groundhog Day.
Oh, I hope to
Actually,
be that age someday.
I'm going to be 60 in October, which I really can't believe, October 9th. Yeah, actually, there's been a couple moments like that. One of them was meeting Elizabeth Montgomery. I mean, I remember how my mindset shifted. I mean, I was writing, singing, dancing in LA. I was doing clubs and stuff, and I was doing everything I possibly could, but nothing really was panning out until I focused on the writing. And then when I met Elizabeth, I'm like, okay, so what else matters? You know what I mean? It's like, really, not even my career aspirations. It was an amazing moment. And two, my parents at that time were getting older. So it kind of all happened at the same time that I left LA and went back to take care of them. So there was a shift there. There was a shift when I was doing the live, or when I had my first book published. That was an amazing moment where I actually saw, the original The Bewitched book on a bookshelf. And then when I was doing the live events, which I talked about, and I says, well, this is, I went through so much. I sacrificed a lot. Artistic and creative people, let's face it, we're not regular people. And I don't mean that in a we're superior. I mean, we just don't do, in general, what other people do. We have different lives. So while all my other friends got married and had houses, owned homes and things, I was still struggling to find my place. No matter the accomplishments, I was still, okay, well, is this really where it's going to end, or am I going to take it further? Does it matter? So all of those things are going through my head. So the live events that's when I said, well, I guess this is what it's going to be. I'm going to just pour money in. I'm not making any money. So this is okay. And I was okay with it. And it's amazing things happen when you reach that point where you don't get attached to your goals. And boom, I got the show. And then when I went and actually had the show on the air, I'm like, wow.
Well, you know what? I think it sort of reminds me of the phrase or variation of it is that success comes to those who are prepared for it to happen. So, in other words, you've been
Yeah.
working for years and years and years and years, and then all of a sudden, it, it, it didn't really fall into your lap. There must have been things that actually drew you to that meeting and to that relationship. Uh,
Discovered
so
overnight.
you are
Yeah, it wasn't
because
overnight.
you just didn't give up.
Everything.
You didn't give up.
No, I didn't. And I felt like it. And people would say to me, you know, first of all, you're never going to move to California. You're never going to meet Elizabeth Montgomery. You're never going to become an NBC page. You're never going to get any books published. You're never going to do any TV documentaries. I mean, on and on and on of what people told me I was never going to do. I did. Okay. And that's why you really can't ever listen to anybody because everybody's got their own stuff. At least anyone negative or anything negative. It's not enough room in my brain for those kinds of things. I mean, I also have a strong faith, which is important to me, which came from my parents or whatever. Um, so yeah, the whole thing was I was unattached. I was at peace with it. But when when I actually got the show, I said, okay,
Yeah.
now what?
Yeah.
Now I've done it, and really, everything after that getting the show has been like extra.
Yeah.
And I'm so unattached to everything, whether it's goals that it's a piece. I mean, I've wanted it my whole life, and everything that I did in my career led me to that. It's not like I planned it, but that's how it worked. Moving to LA, the NBC job. Well, actually, I was a bellman before the NBC job, and the bellman prepared me for the guest relations job at NBC, and then where I started, watch I, Jimmy Genie 15 years later, which led to the Bewitched book, which led to the documentaries, which led to other books, which led to the live events, which led to the show. So everything that happened led to this moment, but I didn't plan it that way. I was just going through the motions of where I was being led.
So just
Yeah.
so that we don't lose uh, 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 what's important in life. Now that people have gotten to know you a bit, um, where can they find out more information about your books and your then again with Herbie J. Pilato? Is there some place magical that they can go?
Um, yes, my main website is herbiejpilato.com, and that will take you to all the different links, whether it's on my Facebook pages or Twitter, or I'm on Medium. I write on Medium a lot. Or if you want to order personally signed copies of my books, you can certainly contact me through my website. But quite frankly, they're more expensive that way. So if you want to get them unsigned and a lot cheaper, just go right to Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com for most of my books. For my show, it's Amazon Prime in the USA and Amazon Prime in the UK.
And your show is also streaming currently on Shout Factory.
Right. It's
Yeah.
also on Shout Factory TV, which is the main distributor for the show. And thank you, Shout Factory TV. They believed in me as well. And yes, we are all partnered together on Then Again with Herbie J. Pilatos. Pilato. Pilatos, it became Greek there for a minute. Um, Joel Eisenberg, Lori Gersh, Steve Hillard, Shout Factory TV, Amazon Prime. Thank you. I mean, it's those are the partnerships, because I'm an executive producer on the show as well with Joel and Lori as a producer. So it's just an amazing partnership, and I'm just so blessed, so grateful, and that's the key, I think.
Great gratefulness.
Gratefulness, being grateful and unattached, and being a good person. I mean, no, I'm no angel, but I wake up every day and I try to do the best I can. I mean, my Facebook pages are all very positive. You know, it's not as though I don't swear, but I don't, I try to rise above it when I'm in a public place. I think that I have an obligation to my followers. I swear if I stub my toe, but on Facebook I'm not going to swear because I consider myself an intelligent, educated individual, and I want to present that. And I want others. There's a lot of kids who follow me, so I'm not going to be swearing left and right, which is why I have a big issue with the way TV shows are made today. I mean,
Well,
just
TV shows, there's so much TV now. I mean, look back to the 50s, 60s, and 70s, your area of specialty, if you will, our youthful experience with television. And the shows were, if you watch some of those shows today on DVD or whatever, you can see that they're rather simple. You know, the production values are not the way they are today. Um, and there was less TV. There were three networks, then maybe a fourth network, independent network coming up. Today we have television, to coin a phrase, television everywhere. Um, and yet I don't know that it's better. What do you think?
well. First of all, I don't think that the quality of television production in the '60s and '70s was bad. I think it was quite high quality. It was just a different kind of quality. The scripts of today, they've got this arc thing going on, and they've got all the stories continue on episodic TV. In back in the day, they were self-contained half-hour episodes or 1 hour episodes, and then everything is so dark and dingy. I have to like squint sometimes to try and see what's going on, and then everybody's mumbling and slurring their words, and because it's supposed to be more realistic. Well, it's not realistic. It might be realistic, but it's not clear and it's depressing. And they all look the same and they all talk the same. I say this all the time. They all roll their eyes. Everybody's sarcastic. Everybody's quirky. There's no diversity. Now, they think there's diversity, but there's not. Gilligan's Island, okay? You had all kinds of different looking people. Every one of those characters looked different. Okay, and there was the skinny guy, the heavy set guy, the redhead. There was the country girl. There were the rich, the wealthy Howells. There was a professor. They were all unique characters, and casting was important then. Today, everybody's beautiful.
Yeah.
Everybody's gorgeous. Everybody's perfect. There's no flaws.
Well,
And
there are, and you mentioned everybody's beautiful. I noticed that there are less character actors around today. All the great character actors have gone. They've passed. I don't see very many. There's a few up and coming character actors, people who are happy to be the supporting cast and play a fun role, a bad guy or whatever. I think bad guy, just the first name that came to mind was Anthony Zerbe. Anthony, was it Zerbe? Anthony Zerbe.
Yeah, Zerb. Either
Was
way.
anyway, he was in a whole host of you know cop dramas. He was always the bad guy. You would see him in the beginning, and you knew he was the bad guy. But it was okay because he was such a good character actor.
Yes,
He
it's
played
hard.
other roles in his career, but we get we I got to know him as a great. I call him a bad guy, but a really an interesting uh, antagonist.
No, I'm 100% in agreement, and that's because the actors back in the day who did those character roles and supporting roles were trained actors from the stage. Today, these kids, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of these kids, they do a YouTube video, boom, they get a series. But they have no background in the
Yeah.
theater, or they may have done, certain plays here and there, but they've not had careers on the stage in New York. And all of those people who appeared in the 60s and 70s, they're all gone now. And, we couldn't do the Golden Girls today. They tried to do it on Fox about a retirement group last year, starring Vicki
Yes.
Lawrence. I forget the name of the show.
Yeah, Vicki Lawrence and a couple of other great
Mark
actors.
Mall, yes. and it was wonderful. But nope, 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 didn't happen. They canceled it after 13 episodes.
Yeah.
So it's look at there's a lot of talent out there in front of and behind the camera, but there's also a lot of misguidance as to what the industry thinks the audience wants, and the audience wants a good story. And I'll tell you, you're flipping through the channels. You know, you're seeing dark this, dark that, dark this, dark that, and then you see that girl. What are you gonna stop on? I'm going to stop on that girl. It's bright and happy. There's this amazing energy, these likable characters, which you do not see today. There are no likable performances. A character can be unlikable, but the actor playing that character has to deliver a likable performance, i.e., Larry Hagman as JR. Evil character, great likable performance as the character. We
Yeah.
loved to hate him because of Larry Hagman's likable
So Herbie
performance.
J, what's really amazing is that we could probably, because we are of all the same age, talk about the areas of your expertise probably for hours. But I know we're limited to some extent, but just because, well, I'm a bit older than you, and I grew up watching Ernie Kovacs and his early morning show. I was an EFMS member, early Eyeball Fraternal and Marching Society, because I had an aunt named Albert who smoked a hookah, but I don't want to get into that. And
Okay.
Steve Allen, and actually for me, my most memorable characters were in the comedy area, but only because today also marks the day that we learned about the passing of Carl Reiner. And so,
Yes.
Right.
you have some
Yes.
thoughts on that?
Well, I do. I mean, he created obviously the Dick Van Dyke Show, which to me is I'd say it's the best TV sitcom in history. I know people think I Love Lucy is, and I personally think Bewitched is in its own little category. But the Dick Van Dyke Show to me was just the best written, produced sitcom in history. And Carl Reiner co-created it, or excuse me, created it and co-starred on it as Alan Brady. And it's also special to me too because I wrote Mary, the Mary Tyler Moore story, her biography, and I just delved so much into that show, the Dick Van Dyke Show, as well as the Mary Tyler Moore Show. But I used to watch Dick Van Dyke every day. When I would come home from school for lunch, we got to do that in St. Peter's and Paul in Rochester, New York. We were one of the lucky ones who got to go home for lunch, and I would watch Bewitched or Dick Van Dyke or That Girl every day. So I became familiar from the beginning, not just from the original runs of those shows, but ABC used to and CBS used to rerun their shows during the day too. So
So, John,
yeah, I mean, Carl Reiner was a
so
genius, and the Dick Van Dyke Show. What made it great is that there was no pop culture references of the time. Carl Reiner would not allow that
Right.
because he knew it would be rerun, or he was thinking about the future. And he thought that anything timely would throw off people who are watching it today. So when you watch the show, the scripts are timeless because they just happen to be in the 1960s, and there's real no retroness about it except the clothes. But the humor is all topical and current and hip, and there's no references to the 60s. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, they were situation jokes,
Yes.
situation comedies. Yeah.
Yes.
so
Yeah.
John, I have a challenge for you.
Oh, for me.
Yeah, I mean, we got this great opportunity to speak with Herbie J, and we knew that was going to be interesting. We're going to have to figure out. I'm going to have to leave that to you because you've got this whole theatrical background. How are we going to get this guy back someday? I mean,
I think
this
so.
cannot be a one-off.
Well, I don't know. Haven't we talked about everything really? We've kind of run it into the ground.
Oh,
What else could you talk about?
Yeah, we could move on.
okay.
50 years of television. I mean, really. What else could we talk about? Anyway, Herbie J, it has been a lot of fun. And I do love your show. I want to see more of it. Then again with Herbie J. Pilato, streaming on Amazon Prime and now in the UK.
Yep. That's
So
exciting.
I wish you much success with that show, and I enjoy it tremendously. But I also enjoyed hearing about your career and the karma, the good things that happen when you kind of get old enough to appreciate and just go with it. Just
Yeah.
go with the flow. Just do what you need to do, you know?
Yeah, I mean, try to be a good person, do your work, don't be attached to goals, and don't do drugs.
But just say no, that's all. Yeah,
I
okay.
just say no, but I'm not trying to be simple or simplistic about it or make a joke of it. It's true. It just, those, because I believe no matter what religion you're, I really don't care. I'm not preaching religion. I'm preaching love. Okay. I'm preaching goodness. If you're loving, kind, and you wake up and you try to be a good person, do the best you can. And we all have flaws. We all make mistakes. Forgive yourself, forgive others. Just move forward. If what you're going to do is going to bring some kind of benefit to the world, the universe will support that. That's what I believe.
Well, great. Well, thank you, Herbie J. And just
And you guys know what you're talking about too, by the way. So I want to thank you for your professionalism and just knowing what to say and caring about the things that I care about. That's important. Thank you for respecting me.
well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome, but thank you.
Yes.
So until the next
Agreed.
time, go watch the Herbie J. Pilato Then Again series. It's just absolutely amazing. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you, Art. Thank you, Don.
For more on Celebrating Act Two, visit our webpage, follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and tell your friends. Celebrating Act Two is the user manual for the second half of your life.